The level that had been stagnating at 15 had jumped up to 17. In just a single day, he crazily raised his level from 1 all the way up to 17. However, no one hunted boss mobs for experience points. Indeed, if it was a boss mob, then it'd be all about the loot drops. When he started checking out the dead snake, 2 spots of light began gleaming from somewhere within its limp body. 2 items, because it was a boss. Jinwoo reached out towards the spots of light. Take them all. As soon as he said those words, a dagger made out of a bone and a small pouch with liquid in it appeared on his palms. Rarity C. Type Dagger. Attack plus 25. A dagger fashioned from the poison fang of the Kasaka. There are traces of the Kasaka's poison on it, so when attacking, it will cause paralysis and bleeding status effects. Can be stored in the inventory or can be sold at the store. Status effect paralysis. The target will be unable to move. Success rate is fixed. Status effect bleeding. The target's stamina will be reduced by 1% per second. Jinwoo nodded his head. A dagger made not out of bone, but from the fang. It's not a bad item with those options, yeah. Next up was the pouch. Rarity A. Type Medicine. A pouch containing the refined poison of the Kasaka. Can be found very rarely when hunting Kasakas. Drinking this poison will give you strong skin, but the toxicity will permanently damage your muscles. Affect the iron scales of Kasaka. 20% reduction in physical damage. Side effect damaged muscles. Strength minus 35. Jinwoo's expression alternated between joy and anguish. The poison fang of Kasaka was a good weapon to replace the broken longsword. Not only did it possess over twice the attack power, but he really liked the 2 status effects of paralysis and bleeding, too. However, this poison sac is a bit. Initially, he was really pleased to find an item with the rarity rating. But when reading the description, he realized this was not something he could feel completely chuffed about. Of course, that effect of reducing all physical damage taken by 20% was a great option befitting a rank item. However, it also carried a fatal penalty of decreasing his strength stat by 35. It'd be a really painful loss for him, especially when he invested all of his points on increasing his strength stat. It was then a new message popped up. Suddenly, his sights blurred for a bit, and then they were restored back to normal, along with a slight bit of dizziness assaulting his senses. When he took a look around, he found himself inside a normal subway station. The lights overhead shone brightly, and the black liquid filling up the tunnel was all gone, too. But where is everyone? Not just people, but even trains were strangely absent. He even checked the time while thinking that the trains had stopped running for the day because it was so late already, but the clock was indicating 10 p.m. He entered the Hapjeong station around the lunch hour, so he had spent over 9 hours inside that dungeon. Who goes there? Who knew that the voice of another person would sound this welcoming? Jinwoo quickly raised his head. He saw a soldier wielding a rifle. Who are you? Why are you coming out from there? Haven't you heard the broadcasts? The expression of the soldier was so serious that even Jinwoo's own expression hardened in an instant. Did something happen? What the? How can you even say that? The soldier approached closer, but then he spotted the broken sword in Jinwoo's hand. After it broke, it could no longer be stored in the inventory, and Jinwoo didn't feel like leaving it behind, so he just carried it outside like this. Seeing that, the light within the soldier's eyes changed rapidly. He then carefully studied Jinwoo's current appearance. Now that this soldier had taken a closer look, Jinwoo's clothes displayed various hints of the youth participating in many fierce battles recently. The crumpled expression of the soldier lightened up in an instant. Are you a hunter by any chance? Yes, I am one, but, please forgive me. This way, please. Let me guide you there. Sure, sensing that his troubles might get more complicated if he said there's been a misunderstanding here. Seong Jinwoo decided to quietly follow the soldier's guidance for now. Jinwoo then swept his gaze around his vicinity. Now that I see, the surrounding atmosphere felt rather suspicious. The streets were totally deserted. The only people he could see were the soldiers and the members of the police. Also, corpses belonging to monsters, destroyed cars, and buildings with cracks running up their walls. Jinwoo realized what had happened here. A gate must have opened up nearby. Something like that almost never happened nowadays with the well-established hunter system in place. But sometimes, a gate would appear in a remote area, and it'd go unnoticed for a while. As a result, no one would come around to close it in time. When such an event unfolded, soldiers from the nearby bases were dispatched in order to buy some time until hunters could arrive on the scene. Of course, the weapons of soldiers didn't work against the monsters. However, in order to facilitate the evacuation of civilians, someone had to be offered up as sacrifices. In other words, they were to become cannon fodder. A role someone had no choice but to perform had been saddled on the shoulders of this nation's youths. I've received a word that the monsters in the vicinity have been dealt with, and only the biggest one remains. Jinwoo nodded his head. He didn't need to hear the soldier's explanation to know. He could actually sense the presence of a powerful life form nearby, and he could even sense several auras of hunters surrounding it, too. The enhanced perception stat was transmitting crucial information in the form of sensations and feelings, and that's how Jinwoo got to figure it out almost immediately. That thing is the boss. Soon enough, the creature could be seen in the distance. In the empty, open space not too far from him, a dozen or so hunters were surrounding a giant made out of rock. It was as tall as a telephone pole. It was a golem-type monster. Yuck. The soldier spat out a gasp of fear as he took a step backwards. Perhaps it was his first time seeing one. Since the moment he saw it, his entire body had stiffened noticeably. But then again, most people would react in a similar fashion. The difference between seeing a monster for real and seeing it on a TV or a computer monitor was like heaven and earth, after all. Unlike him, Jinwoo remained calm and observed the unfolding situation. Healers, concentrate your healing on the tanker. We're also doing our best. Why isn't it dying already? What are the damage dealers doing? It's not even remotely close enough to dying, is it? The monster's defenses are too strong, and we just don't have enough magic-type hunters in our group. Because they had been summoned out here in haste, none of them seemed to be high-ranked hunters. Both their defenses and attacks didn't look that effective at all. Because of that, hunters couldn't avoid being embroiled in the protracted battle of attrition. Boom. When the golem slammed its massive stone fist downward, the hunter acting as the tanker had no choice but to kneel down just for a brief second. The tanker vomited out a mouthful of blood. The tanker might die at this rate. Jinwoo's gaze, as he took all of these in, gleamed quite sharply. If it's only that much, I can do this. Jinwoo slowly took several steps back. This golem-type boss might possess the high defense, but its rank was probably lower than its scary outer appearance might suggest. Just from the aura it emitted, it was definitely weaker than the boss of the instant dungeon, the poison fang blue whatever. So, if I could just render its high defenses to nothing. What's needed right now was a powerful strike that could penetrate past the dumb rock giant's defenses. Jinwoo got to enough distance away and took a position of throwing something. The muscles in the arm holding the broken sword began swelling up quite violently out of the blue. Thick, pulsing veins even popped up on the back of his hand, too. All of his physical strength was concentrated in his right arm. A short while after that, the arm pulled back taut like the string of a bow was shot forward at the speed of sound. Go. The view of the rank D hunter, Lee Han-soo, was turning dark. He couldn't continue on anymore. His prized shield had begun developing cracks as well, as if their magic energy had been depleted. The amount of healing magic hitting him from the healers had decreased quite noticeably. At this rate, every single one of them would die for sure. Lee Han-soo had to make a decision now. The only feasible plan here was for him to buy enough time so the other hunters could safely escape from here. And at a later time, hunters with higher ranks show up to kill this golem. Or we all die together here. Lee Han-soo shouted out while looking back. Leave this to me and you all gotta. It was at this moment that Lee Han-soo saw it. Something flew towards here as it gleamed coldly in the night air. Actually, he could only sense that he had seen something, but his eyes couldn't really pick up on anything tangible. It was that fast. That something slammed into the golem's head and it grandly exploded. It's working. Our attacks are working. It's falling. A little bit more. Just a bit more and we'll win. It seemed that none of them had noticed the object flying in from somewhere, because they were too focused on attacking the monster, with the sole exception of Lee Han-soo standing right in front of the golem. That was. In the end, the golem toppled over. The heavy body fell down to the ground and kicked up a mighty dust storm. Hunters all cried out in elation and celebrated their victory. We did it. We killed it. Only Lee Han-soo had seen everything unfold, and he slowly shook his head. No, our attacks didn't even work on this guy. Lee Han-soo hurriedly searched around the vicinity of the fallen golem. Just what did destroy the head of this rock giant? Lee Han-soo thought out aloud and searched around. Eventually, he discovered the remnants of a broken sword. Although there were some traces of magic energy within it, it was basically a cheap, plain steel sword. What? Someone threw something this worthless and destroyed a boss-level golem capable of brushing off the combined attacks of 10+ hunters. Suddenly, he forgot what he wanted to say. Lee Han-soo silently alternated his gaze between the corpse of the golem and the broken sword. before he ran past the cheering hunters and in the direction the sword flew in from. "Excuse me," he found a dazed soldier standing there. "Pardon, you talking to me?" "That's right, you." When a hunter with a hulking physique hurriedly rushed towards him, the soldier couldn't help but swallow nervously with a stiff face. That was how great the pressure a hunter gave off to regular people. Li Han-su displayed the broken sword and asked, "Did you throw this?" "Oh, that. It's actually..." The soldier looked behind him, only for his eyes to go round in surprise. But there was a hunter standing right behind me, though. Of course, there was no one there now. While the flustered soldier was looking around the vicinity, Li Han-su scratched the back of his neck and stared at the broken sword. That power, that destructive power. Could it have been a high-rank hunter? He'd never know, since the protagonist had disappeared already. Around the same time, Jin-woo was on his way home. He turned around to leave as soon as the golem began teetering about. Indeed, he was the one who brought down the golem. He was well aware of this fact. Now originally, the loot and the profit arising from a dead monster belonged solely to the hunter who managed to kill it. If he wanted to, he could contest for the rights to the golem. However, it had become problematic when trying to prove that I am capable of bringing down a golem like that. Who would believe the notion of a giant golem crashing down because of an attack from a measly little rankie? His level rose up by 1 because he had killed the golem. Indeed, my levels will rise if I hunt the monsters from the normal dungeons. He had learned some valuable information. That alone was worth it. A person stepping outside the house in the early hours of dawn would inevitably be cautious in their movements. Well, they might end up accidentally waking up their family members, after all. That was why Seong Jin-ah was silently closing the front door to her home, so that her brother wouldn't wake up from his sleep, as she was about to leave for school. But then, "You going to school now?" She was taken by surprise when a voice came from near her, and she quickly turned around to look. Jin-ah's eyes opened up real wide in shock. "What the heck? You were up already?" "Yup, been a while since I was up, you know. Hey, have fun today and be careful on the road." Sure." Now that I think about it, her older brother's back seemed broader than before, for some reason. No way that's true. A human's body wasn't made out of some rubber band. So how could it make any sense for him to expand and contract in a space of a few days? I've probably made a mistake. Just as Jin-ah shook her head, Jin-woo suddenly pushed forward an umbrella to her. "Why an umbrella?" Jin-ah received it and took a look at the sky. As it was still early dawn, the sky remained dark, but it seemed to be more or less clear and cloudless. "But it doesn't look like it's going to rain, though." "Take it anyway." "But it's heavy, you know. Take it with you regardless. Besides, it's a folding type umbrella so it doesn't even weigh anything." Jin-ah lightly kicked the door a couple of times to express her disgruntlement, folded the umbrella and shoved it inside the empty space in her school bag, and turned around to leave. "Hang on." Her steps came to an abrupt halt after she remembered the difference in the eye levels between her and her brother. Something was rather odd. He had been saving up the stat points earned from the quests of the past 4 days. He made sure to complete the daily quest every day. Of course, he also didn't forget to always check his rewards, too. However, he hadn't distributed the points until now. The issue was, this is tough. Indeed, he found it rather difficult to come to a decision. The strength stat. It was a wonderful stat, that's for sure. He hadn't regretted it once, investing all of his points into this one back when he started this thing. Agility. This was also a pretty darn good stat, too. Against weak enemies, it only helped a little, but as the levels of his opponents rose up in the future, no doubt he'd be relying on this stat more and more. Well, the speed was a relative thing, after all. And then, stamina and perception. It'd be great if his stamina was high, obviously, and this perception turned out to be very useful as well. Finally, intelligence. This was the problem child. He hadn't been able to figure out this stat's uses yet. His level had increased by quite a lot, but he didn't feel any smarter than before. His memories didn't seem to have improved, nor did his ability to calculate quickly, either. I think it has to be related to magic. After a lengthy deliberation, he decided on the order of priority. Strength 50, stamina 27, agility 35, intelligence 27, perception 29. It was then he could hear the telephone ringing from the living room. "Is the association calling me?" In the past, he didn't want to participate in the raid, so he did his best to ignore the calls until the last possible moment. But right now, he was raring to go and test out his raised abilities against various monsters. Jin-woo quickly snatched up the receiver. "This is the hunter Seong Jin-woo. You finally picked up the phone. Too bad, it wasn't a call from the association." A rueful sigh leaked out of his mouth. "Learner Jin-woo, why is it so difficult to get in touch with you lately? The voice coming from the speaker was a familiar one. It had been 4 years already since he graduated from high school, and therefore stopped being a learner. But the owner of the building always attached that prefix in front of Jin Woo's name ever since taking in both the Seong siblings when they were still young kids. I'm really sorry about that. I was admitted to the hospital because of an incident a few days ago, so that's what happened. I should have known. Well, there's that, and learner Jin Woo. The rent for this month hadn't come in yet, so what should I do? If it's a bit too tough for you, should I delay it for a month or two? Oh no, it's fine. I'll send the money in a bit later. Okay, but don't force yourself, you hear. Trying to look after your mom and your younger sister, you're going through so much hardship there. I know money is important, but don't forget to take care of your body too. Thank you, I won't forget that. The call ended there. Jin Woo pulled out the bank balance book from one of the drawers. The remaining amount in the account was only around 800,000, just over $700. I gotta make some money first. Jin Woo decided to take care of the urgent matters first. He was no longer the same guy from a few days ago who couldn't even kill a single E-ranked monster and shiver in fear. Should I just take the rank reassignment test and increase my rank right away? Eventually, Jin Woo shook his head. He knew that was a stupid thing to do, no matter how hard he thought about it. A hunter ranked E suddenly became a high-ranked one. Whether that was or B, or maybe even C, it didn't matter. The reawakening would always become a hot topic of conversation. The masses loved nothing more than a good gossip, and hunters just so happened to be a good subject to chew on. The old saying went that, if there were 5 mouths, then there would be 10 eyes. Meaning, the more people talked about you, the more eyes would be focused on you. His stats would continue to rise up in the future, so it'd be only a matter of time before his special constitution was discovered by the others. He was far too weak as he was now. Until he possessed enough power to protect himself, he didn't want the world to know of his existence. Meaning, taking the test to reassign his ranks was out of the question. But I still need to make money here. Hello. Jin Woo stated his reasons for calling as precisely as possible and calmly waited for the answer. Oh, you're an E rank. The response from the other side was better than expected. It's fine. We just need someone to show up and fill up the head count, that is all. However, it's a gate rank C, so it'd be hard for you to hunt there. So, we'll just split the profits among ourselves and we just give you 2 million in cash. How about it? Can you come right away? 2 million for a day's work, around $1,765. It was a lot of money for simply being there to make up the numbers. A rather tempting offer this was. It was regrettable that he couldn't get to share the dungeon's loot, but he might end up losing out on making 2 million just by trying to be too greedy. For now, let's put out the urgent fires first. Such an opportunity wouldn't come around every day. After all, 2 million was enough for him and his sister's monthly living expenses. Jin Woo said yes to the offer. I'll be there in less than 15 minutes. The man who looked like the leader of the group waved his hand at Jin Woo. Hey, over here. It was a bearded man with a fairly big physique. He smiled softly and walked closer while speaking to Jin Woo. Are you Mr. Seong Jin Woo? That's correct. It's a relief that you found the right place so quickly. I guess this is fate. So how about we greet each other before we get started? The bearded man briefly introduced the members of his team. The 8 of them, including himself, were regular teammates that worked together all the time, while the remaining guy was someone who also came here to make up the numbers, just like Jin Woo. Jin Woo greeted other team members and studied their countenance carefully. Thanks to his enhanced perception stat, he was able to more or less sense everyone's capabilities. 5 with a similar rank, 4 with a slightly lower rank than them, 5 rank CS and around 4 with D or lower. There was a regulation when attempting to clear a gate rated C. The minimum number of a party had to be 10 hunters, and more than half had to be at least ranked C or higher. Excuse me, looks like we're both pieces of fluff in this party, huh? He was none other than the other hunter Hwang Dong-seok had brought along in order to fill up the numbers. He was a young man with a bright expression. However, unlike Jin Woo, he was actually going to participate in battles. Jin Woo lightly nodded his head as Yu Jin Ho greeted him, before shifting his gaze away. Before we enter, you two, take a look at these. Hwang Dong-seok pushed forward a page of a document to Jin Woo and Yu Jin Ho each. It turned out to be a simple contract. Write your names on the bottom and sign it, and we're good to go. The contents said he'd not participate in any hunting. He'd not participate in sharing of the loot. And when the raid was over, he'd be paid 2 million won right away. The terms were the same as what he heard over the phone. However, they were not the ones to catch his attention. I have to promise not to question them regardless of whatever incident happens inside the dungeon. Unlike the raids organized by the association, one would not be able to claim for compensation if something happened during a raid organized by the freelancers. One of the reasons why hunters couldn't get a life insurance either. One had to look after one's own neck, in other words. Only now did it feel real that Jinwoo had entered an assault team. What am I supposed to do when we're inside? Nothing too particular. Just follow us and help us carry the luggage, that's all. Your luggage. Wang Dongseok pointed at the huge backpack one of his Dongxings pulled out from the minivan. You'll be carrying around lunch boxes to eat when inside, several sets of clothing and equipment, first aid kits and some other stuff. Wait, first aid kits when entering a dungeon? Jinwoo couldn't help but question this. You are not entering with a healer. I'm sure you already know that it's not easy to hire a healer if you're running your own assault party. Well, we've been doing things this way until now, so it'll be fine. Wang Dongseok smiled awkwardly. To think, this team just barely met the required minimum number of hunters. One of the additional members mistook a raid as a blind date or something. And the composition of the assault team only happened to feature a tanker and damage dealers, and not one healer. Even after hearing that there was no healer present, that oblivious additional member didn't seem too bothered by the revelation. It was the sure proof that he was a newbie. Jinwoo smirked inwardly. They are a bunch of wannabes. However, he still signed on the contract. Not because he needed that 2 million, but because he knew very well that he could protect himself now. Wang Dongseok confirmed the signatures of both men and shouted out in a loud voice as if he was feeling really pleased today. Okay, let's get going, everyone. The party headed straight to the location of the gate. It was in the middle of the halted construction site for an apartment complex. The economy nowadays isn't so good, but still, Wang Dongseok clicked his tongue. Like large tombstones, unfinished apartment buildings stood still sporadically, imparting a certain sense of foreboding to all who looked at them. Could a cemetery of giants feel this way to observers? Did you know? Yu Jinho had walked closer to Jinwoo and whispered softly. While the employees and the investors are going through hell at the moment, the CEO of the project ran off to overseas 2 months ago along with 900 billion. Jinwoo gave the other guy plenty of hints, but it seemed like Yu Jinho didn't want to leave his side at all. Hyun, are you always this quiet? Before anyone had noticed it, the honorific had become Hyun. Jinwoo couldn't ignore this kid anymore. Don't you know how to take the hint? Well, I've never lived while worrying about taking hints, so. Was this guy simply a good-natured, or just brainless? Jinwoo wordlessly scratched the side of his head as he stared at Yu Jinho, and that bright smile of his. Oh, the hunters all let out a surprised gasp. Hwang Hyun, is this really a gate-rated C? But isn't it too big? You think the association was lying to us? They said that investigators came around here twice already. A hole in the air, floating like a black hole. People took to calling it a gate. Its rank was assigned according to the waves of magical energy emission coming from inside. Folks from the association would stop by first to assign a rank to each one. After that, individuals or guilds wanting to clear the gate could follow the procedure and apply for a permit. Gates ranked or B were, most of the time, left to the big guilds. Well, they were too difficult for freelancers to clear, after all. So, assault parties formed by freelancers took care of the gates ranked lower than that, which meant that a gate rank C was effectively the hardest one for hunters not affiliated with anyone to clear. Wang Dongseok stood in front of the gate and looked back at his team. I'll be entering first. Do your best to keep up, everyone. The tanker entered first, and the other hunters began entering one by one. Yu Jinho began pulling out his own equipment from his bag. The sword and the shield coming out from his bag gleamed attractively under the light. Even a casual glance could tell that they were very expensive. They were definitely not something a newbie hunter could organize on his own. The interior of the dungeon was eerily quiet. Not only that, but it was also completely dark, too. Wang Dongseok issued his first order. Hey, Jiu Hwan, I need a light. Alright. The magic-related hunter Zhou Jiu Hwan created a ball of a light in midair. The surroundings became bright immediately. Wang Dongseok lowered his shield and tilted his head slightly. What the hell? Where are all the monsters? I wonder. There is no light in here, either. Now normally, there should have been luminous stones found here and there inside cave-like dungeons and emitted some light to illuminate the way forward. However, this dungeon didn't have those. Yu Jinho whispered to Jinwoo from the side. Hyun, could there be a dungeon without monsters in it? Shush. Jinwoo gestured the younger man to keep quiet. Because Jinwoo's ears were twitching. He could hear lots of footsteps coming from the distance. Jinwoo spoke up. It's not that there aren't any, they just haven't arrived yet. Yu Jinho swallowed nervously after hearing that. Rumble. Soon, the party could hear what Jinwoo had heard earlier on. Only then did Hwang Dong-seok realize something was amiss here. A dungeon with no luminous stones could mean what moves around in groups, lives in darkness, and rushes towards a source of light. Oh crap. The complexions of Hwang Dong-seok and his Dong-seings became ashen all at the same time. It's bugs. Bugs are coming. FCK it, ma'am. Why the hell did it have to be goddamn bugs? Hwang Dong-seok cried out. Get into your positions. They are coming. Out of all the monster types,